Hello, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. The Prime Minister and I just finished the first day of the APEC Leader Summit here in Bangkok, Thailand, and we've been sharing elements of the Indo-Pacific strategy with our partners here in the region. And I myself have been here 9 times this year and have been listening to how Canada can contribute to the future of trade in the Indo-Pacific. Today, we are announcing $92.5 million for the Indo-Pacific Regional Capacity Uplift. This will increase Canada's presence here on the ground, deepen diplomatic ties to build and maintain the important relationships that we are creating. We're also announcing $45 million for Team Canada trade missions. This will bring Canadian businesses, entrepreneurs, and innovators to this region to make these really important connections on the ground so that they can grow and access this dynamic market here in the Indo-Pacific. This investment is going to help deepen Canadian presence here, to help our businesses grow, to help enhance the people-to-people ties, and ultimately, when Canadian businesses grow, they're going to create great jobs for Canadians back home. Canada is a reliable, rules-based trading partner. We're a leader in inclusive trade that will benefit everyone: women entrepreneurs, Indigenous entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, small and medium-sized businesses. While at ASEAN, Canada was elevated to a strategic partnership, and this is a recognition that the region wants more of Canada. And while being here, whether it's at APEC or at ASEAN or in Indonesia for G20, Canada's commitment to this region is here. It's here to stay and here for the long term. And now, let me pass to the Prime Minister. Thank you. Merci. Prime Minister.
Merci, Mary. Bonjour tout le monde. I just wrapped up my participation in the leaders' meeting of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum here in Bangkok. This was an opportunity to connect with other leaders from governments and businesses from around the world. It was important for Canada to be here, to deepen our trade ties in this region, which is a major part of our upcoming Indo-Pacific strategy. More trade, more market access means more good jobs for Canadians and a stronger middle class. Just like we did during the ASEAN and G20 summits, we continue to demonstrate that Canada is a reliable and stable country to do business with. We have a diverse and growing economy, we have a skilled workforce, and we have strong trading relationships around the world, including the CPTPP, which benefits many of our APEC partners who are Pacific nations. L'Indo-Pacifique est la région économique qui connaît la croissance la plus rapide au monde. Ça veut dire énormément de potentiel pour le Canada, pour nos travailleurs, pour nos entrepreneurs et pour la croissance de la classe moyenne. Comme la ministre Ng l'a dit, on va lancer une série de missions commerciales ici dans l'Indo-Pacifique et on va augmenter la présence diplomatique canadienne dans la région avec plus de gens qui travaillent sur le terrain dans nos ambassades et dans nos missions. Ce travail va générer plus d'occasions d'affaires pour nos exportateurs et innovateurs afin qu'ils puissent créer des emplois et de la prospérité chez nous. Indo-Pacific economies are growing faster than almost anywhere else on Earth, and with it, so grows their need for food, agriculture, and fisheries. Today, we're announcing that we'll establish our first ever agricultural office in the Indo-Pacific. Canadian farmers are proud to feed the world. This new office will make sure that our agricultural products, known for their quality, reach new markets and feed this region's growing population. The need for clean energy and green infrastructure is also growing at a rapid pace here in the Indo-Pacific. As the world moves towards net zero, there is enormous potential to grow our ties in the natural resources sector. Canada is stepping up to be the reliable energy and technology supplier that a net zero world will need. For example, in just the last year, we've gone from 5th in the world to 2nd in the world when it comes to the battery supply chain. To keep us moving forward, we're investing in our natural resource trade ties with Indo-Pacific partners. We'll boost our exports of critical minerals and hydrogen, and we'll share our clean tech expertise. By meeting the demand for clean energy here in the Indo-Pacific, we're seizing opportunities for our workers and businesses at home to create more good middle-class jobs and economic growth. From economic and energy security in the Indo-Pacific to peace and security, today we witnessed yet another reckless ballistic missile test from North Korea that has landed off the shores of Japan. This is completely unacceptable and must not continue. This afternoon, I had a meeting with Vice President Harris and the Prime Ministers of Japan, South Korea, New Zealand, and Australia. We're committed to promoting peace, stability, and the rules-based order in the North Pacific and across the region. All global partners have a role to play. The Canadian Armed Forces are already working side by side with defense partners through, for example, Operation Neon, which helps enforce UN sanctions against North Korea. In our upcoming Indo-Pacific strategy, you'll see that we'll be making new investments to enhance the Canadian Armed Forces' engagement in the region. This will support our allies, Japan and South Korea, and all of us in the Pacific. In an uncertain world, this was an important week for Canada's economic interests and for many other issues that matter to people. At the ASEAN Summit, we announced that we'll elevate Canada's relationship with ASEAN to a strategic partnership. This is a strong demonstration of our engagement in the region and is part of our plan to expand and deepen our economic ties. What this means is that countries here with major populations and economies will increasingly look to Canada for business and investment partnerships. At the G20, where the world's biggest economies gathered, I again strongly condemned Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine. We announced another round of military aid for Ukrainians. In my many conversations with world leaders, I discussed priorities like defending human rights in the Indo-Pacific and other parts of the world, such as Iran. We also announced new investments to fight climate change and build sustainable infrastructure, for example, to help countries get off coal power and transition to clean energy. During all these summits, including here at APEC, we focused on building partnerships that create good jobs for Canadian workers and more opportunities for businesses. Canada and the Indo-Pacific share strong ties between our peoples, and we'll keep working to make sure these ties get even stronger. Canada is a reliable, engaged, and long-term partner in the region, ready to invest for a better future for everyone. Pendant qu'on est ici dans l'Indo-Pacifique pour créer des emplois et des opportunités pour les Canadiens, on poursuit aussi notre travail au Canada pour aider les gens qui sont les plus touchés par la hausse du coût de la vie. Notre gouvernement va aider les parents admissibles à payer les soins dentaires de leurs enfants avec jusqu'à 650 $ par année pendant 2 ans. Le projet de loi a maintenant été adopté et les demandes vont commencer à être traitées à partir du 1er décembre. Et dans le cadre de notre plan compréhensif pour rendre un logement plus abordable, on va aussi fournir une aide supplémentaire de 500 $ à ceux qui ont de la difficulté à payer leur loyer. I want to end by talking about what we're doing right now to help Canadian families pay the bills and support their families. Our government's legislation to help parents pay dental expenses for their kids with up to $650 in support per year for 2 years has passed through all stages in Parliament. Applications for the benefit are starting December 1st. Through the same legislation, our government is also delivering payments of an extra $500 for people who are struggling with the cost of rent. This is part of our plan to make life more affordable for Canadians. We've already doubled the GST credit for 6 months and enhanced the Canada Workers Benefit. We'll continue being there for people who need it the most. Across the country, childcare is becoming more affordable. For example, Last year, we announced an agreement to make childcare more affordable for parents in Nunavut with $10 a day childcare by 2024. But today, we have some very good news. We're way ahead of schedule, as $10 a day licensed childcare in Nunavut will be a reality as of December 1st, in just a few weeks. And families right across the country are already feeling the impact of childcare fees cut in half this year. On livre des vrais résultats pour les familles et les travailleurs et on va continuer d'être là pour tous les Canadiens. Ce soir, je vais me rendre en Tunisie pour le sommet de la francophonie où vont se réunir les pays francophones du monde afin d'aborder les grands enjeux devant nous. Le Canada va être une voix forte pour la démocratie et les droits de la personne et, bien sûr, pour la promotion de la langue française. De plus, on va poursuivre le travail qu'on fait ici sur le plan économique. Dans chacune de nos conversations, on identifie de nouvelles opportunités pour créer des emplois et augmenter le commerce au profit de nos entreprises et de nos travailleurs canadiens. Alors, merci tout le monde d'être ici. Je suis heureux de prendre vos questions.
Mr. Trudeau, Mackenzie Gray with Global. The U.S. has said that Mohammed bin Salman approved the operation to kill journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Why did you have lunch with him today?
As was the case for many meetings and sessions throughout the number of summits that we've had, there are people of all different backgrounds at those summits, and in every conversation with every leader, I make sure to bring up our concerns around human rights and of issues that need to be highlighted for Canadians. That's exactly what I did, even though we were around a very large table. Okay. Comme toujours, dans ces sommets, on rassemble des gens de bien des différents pays, incluant des pays avec lesquels on a des différends importants. Mais dans chacune de mes rencontres, je souligne l'importance des droits humains et je représente les perspectives et les valeurs de tous les Canadiens.
Does having lunch today with bin Salman signal to Canadians that you're going to be changing your relationship with Saudi Arabia and trying to improve the relation?
When we're in these summits, we attend a wide range of sessions with many people around the table, and it's extremely important that Canadians can know that regardless of who's around the table, regardless of who we're speaking to, we always stand up clearly for human rights and engage strongly on the issues that matter to Canadians.
Hi, Prime Minister Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News. More than 233,000 people in Yemen are dead at this point. Has Global Affairs Canada stopped shipping weapons to Saudi Arabia like it said it would? And if not, why not?
As you know, the previous government signed a number of contracts with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and governments do follow up on contracts signed by previous governments. But as I also said, we have moved forward with significant reviews of export permits and a strengthening of the transparency and accountability measures that go with all Canadian exports, but particularly to problematic regions.
How seriously do you think the Crown Prince took your lunchtime lecture on human rights while you're still shipping weapons to his kingdom?
The reality is we continue to bring up human rights in any conversation we have with leaders from around the world, because that's what Canadians expect us to do.
Yesterday, China's foreign ministry blamed Canada for years of bad relations with the country, and they called on your government to take concrete steps to improve relations. What do you think of China's assessment, and is improving relations with China even a priority for your government?
One of the things that's important in these summits is the ability to have direct conversations with leaders from around the world. And those conversations aren't always easy, but it's important that we be clear on the perspectives and the positions that Canada has. We look for ways to collaborate and to work constructively with other countries, whether it's on things like climate change, for example, the upcoming COP that we're hosting in Montreal, or whether it's on having conversations on issues of global concern, like the invasion of Ukraine by Russia or North Korea's continued missile tests. It's important to be able to engage directly with countries on areas of concern, and that's exactly what we will continue to do every step of the way. But allow me to emphasize again that as we talk about challenges that Canada has had historically and over the past years with China, we cannot forget or overlook the incredible contributions of Chinese Canadians to the well-being and success of our country, whether it's small business owners or parliamentarians or people who are deeply committed to growing opportunities and creating jobs for Canadians in their communities and across the country. We can be proud of having one of the strongest Chinese Canadians diasporas in the world that has contributed as Canadians to the well-being of our country. And actually, on that, I'd love to hear from you, Mary.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. As a Chinese Canadian in your cabinet, I think it is really important that I have an opportunity to speak to Chinese Canadians and Asian Canadians and know that the contributions that you make to the country is extraordinary and that we will always stand up for you, particularly in the face of anti-Asian hate and racism. And while there are conversations that are difficult to have at times, for Asian Canadians and Chinese Canadians, we are there for you. We will always be there for you. And know that the contributions that you make to your country as Canadians is exceptional.
And Prime Minister, in your speech, you talked about being promoted to peace and security in the regions and signaled that the Canadian Armed Forces will have a larger role to play. Is this specifically related to the threat posed by North Korea, and what gap do you want Canada to be filling in the region?
Well, as you know, Canada continues to operate in the North Pacific and across the Pacific as a partner and ally to many countries with security concerns here. One of our concrete missions, in Operation Neon, is all about interdicting sanction evasion from the North Koreans. We're making sure that those UN sanctions are respected alongside allies. Our commitment to this region is for economic growth and opportunity, but we know, and this conversation has come up in many different ways throughout the past number of days, you can't talk about economic opportunity and growth without the stability and peace that comes when you're avoiding and preventing further conflicts. So we're going to continue to be here in the Indo-Pacific in a broad range of ways, including increased defense investments. But it's part of a multi-pronged strategy that involves more diplomatic engagement, more trade and investment relationships, including on infrastructure, more student-to-student ties, and greater opportunities for Canadians to prosper in this growing and exciting region. La réalité, c'est que nous nous devons de continuer d'être des bons partenaires dans la sécurité du Pacifique du Nord et dans la région. Ça fait plusieurs années maintenant qu'on a une opération pour s'assurer que les sanctions de l'ONU contre la Corée du Nord soient respectées. Et nous allons continuer d'être là en partenaire de sécurité pour les pays dans la région, et, en augmentant nos investissements par rapport à la défense et en augmentant nos investissements diplomatiques, en augmentant nos investissements par rapport à l'investissement et par rapport à l'infrastructure, on démontre qu'on est des partenaires sérieux dans la région pour assurer la stabilité qui va amener plus de prospérité pour les Canadiens et pour les gens dans la région.
Vous vous en allez en Tunisie. Là-bas, il y a une nouvelle constitution qui donne beaucoup de pouvoir dans les mains du président. Il y a beaucoup de craintes autour de ça. Ça va être quoi votre message en termes de droits de la personne, droits démocratiques pour le président quand vous allez le rencontrer?
On va être très clair, comme on l'est toujours, que le respect des droits humains, des droits de la personne sont essentiels. Et en plus, je vais souligner mes préoccupations par rapport au recul démocratique qu'on est en train de voir dans bien des parties du monde et notre inquiétude avec ce qui se passe en Tunisie.
J'aimerais vous entendre, vous allez croiser François Legault pendant votre séjour à la francophonie. Est-ce que vous allez aborder avec lui ce conflit sur les transferts en santé? Puis ça va être quoi votre message?
On va continuer d'avoir des conversations constructives avec tous nos partenaires. Certainement, la grande priorité au sommet de la francophonie, c'est la protection de la langue française au Québec et partout à travers le pays, et la francophonie à travers le monde. et nous allons continuer d'assurer notre travail ensemble là-dessus. Par rapport à nos systèmes de santé, je vais partager les inquiétudes que j'ai en tant que Québécois, mais que tout le monde entend à partir des Canadiens, qu'on a besoin d'améliorations concrètes dans nos systèmes de santé. On a besoin d'avoir des systèmes de santé à travers le pays qui livrent pour les citoyens. Et c'est exactement les conversations qu'on est en train d'avoir avec les ministres de la Santé à travers le pays. Oui, on va être là avec plus d'argent, mais ce n'est pas juste une question de mettre plus d'argent dans des systèmes qui sont affaiblis ou, dans certains cas, brisés. C'est une question d'améliorer les systèmes pour que les familles canadiennes et québécoises puissent compter sur le système qui est là pour les protéger.
Hi, Prime Minister Tom Perry, CBC. I'm wondering, did you reach out to President Xi at this summit to follow up on your conversation at the G20, or do you think there's really anything more for you to say to each other at this point?
I was in a number of sessions over this particular summit with President Xi, and I was very clear in all my interventions with all leaders that it's important that we continue to focus on the things that matter for citizens. I certainly shared what matters for Canadians, but I also talked about how we can create more prosperity and growth in the region by stepping up in our fight against climate change, by standing up for human rights, by investing in inclusive growth that works for everyone. These are messages that we continue to share that are important for Canadians, and I share them with all leaders.
Did you specifically, though, have any follow-up conversation with President Xi about what happened at the G20?
As I said, in these summits, there are always going to be more difficult conversations. Conversations don't get to be easy when you're standing up for your country, when you're presenting issues that are challenging. And we're going to look for areas where we can work together constructively on issues that matter to our citizens. And the COP, the Nature COP that China and Canada are leading together in Montreal in just a few weeks is an important piece of that, an example of that. There are other issues of geopolitical stability and instability that we need to keep addressing, whether it's North Korea or Russia's war in Ukraine or other issues. There are also areas in which we are going to be in disagreement and highlight our concerns, and that's what I've done and that's what I will always do.
Dylan Robertson with the Canadian Press. Prime Minister, when you met with the Thai Prime Minister, he pointed out that you haven't been here since you became Prime Minister and that you're only in Thailand for one night. So I'm wondering how much responsibility you bear for Canada not being seen as a serious player in the region.
I can assure you that the conversations I've had with the Thai Prime Minister, with Thai officials, with officials across this region, have seen the extent to which Canada is serious about this region. We have always been. The reality is there hasn't been an APEC meeting in person since 2018. So this opportunity to engage directly, to demonstrate our seriousness and commitment with an Indo-Pacific strategy that we'll be sharing soon, but that we're announcing various elements of both to Canadians and to partners here, to show that in terms of partnership and investments, we are very much present.
If Russia needs to be isolated, but you can work with China on certain issues, then where do things stand with the Saudis?
I had sessions in which Russian representatives, in which Chinese representatives, in which Saudi representatives were in. We continue to have difficult conversations, but also highlight the important things for Canadians, whether it's standing up for human rights, whether it's standing up for our values and principles, or looking at ways to move forward on things that matter to all of us, like climate change. Difficult conversations are what these summits need to be also all about, even as we talk about greater partnership and collaboration with our allies. We continue to highlight those areas where there are disagreements, and we need to increase our efforts to be heard and to see positive change.
Jonah Julagan from Asahi Shimbun. How important do you think is an APEC leaders' declaration to the impression of the meeting success? topics like Ukraine, North Korea, they kind of sideline the discussions, and sometimes you don't come up with statements. How important are these statements to give the impression that something did happen during the past few days?
I think it's important to understand that you cannot talk about global economic issues without highlighting the need for the peace, stability, and security that underpins any economic progress or growth in the world. So yes, we're going to continue to highlight that Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine is causing much of the food insecurity and energy challenges that the world's facing right now. We will continue to highlight that it's hard to grow an economy in Seoul or in Hokkaido when people are really anxious about the fact that North Korean missiles keep flying overhead and splashing down nearby. There are issues that we need to deal with in this world, and having frank conversations about that and trying to create consensus is important. But as we saw with the G20, we were able to put out a very strong, very clear communique. That's not always going to happen. But the focus that we had in this meeting that included all those discussions, but also highlights the Bangkok Declaration on sustainability, on protecting the environment, is an important achievement that is we're already moving forward on, and we'll continue to work to try and build consensus around important issues as APEC continues tomorrow.
Thank you. This is what concludes Canada's press conference.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde.